Hello everyone. So we had some internet issues, which is why which is why the webinar got aborted. So I believe I had told till about get it. So hello. So I had told about till get it. So there are two more interesting file editors. One of them is called Nano, and and these file editors basically help you write your code or whatever you want to write in the terminal itself. So for example, I do nano intro.txt. This is Linux webinar and I want to save it. I press Control X. They are asking me if you want to save it or not. I press Y and enter. Now let's check intro.txt. This is Linux webinar. Nano Nano helps you create files from scratch. So I just created this right now. Before there was nothing in Nano. Another interesting text editor is Vim. So Vim intro.txt, and in Vim, whenever you enter Vim, there are lots of different options. So if I want to write something in it, I press I first, and you can see that down here there's this there's something called insert. I'll show you again. This is how the Vim editor looks when you enter it and you press I to write something on it. If you don't press I, even if you try to write something, it won't write. So first you press I, and then you type whatever you want. So hello world, and to save anything in the Vim editor, you press escape and semicolon WQ. Whenever you have whenever you have files which you need to edit directly in the terminal, you can either use Vim or Nano, which is very useful. So you can see that there's Linux webinar hello world. So right now I have intro.txt. Now what I want to do is rename this intro.txt to something else because I want it to be named something else. So that time what we use is mv move command. So mv intro.txt to let's say linux.txt. So what this will basically do, it will say intro.txt, which is present in the current directory, will be replaced or renamed to linux.txt in the current directory only. See linux.txt, and I do linux.txt. This is Linux webinar hello world. Now whatever I want to remove this file, I do rm linux.txt, and what rm does is it stands for remove. See, there are no files, but let's say you create some files a b c d. Touch is a command which helps just to create files. It cannot be used to it is not used for editing or modifying files. So I do touch abcd, and here I have 4 files abcd. I want to remove this directory called linux basics. Now if you want to remove a directory normally, let's say I make a directory called pop and I want to remove it. Pop is empty, nothing there, and I want to remove pop. So I do rmdir pop. rmdir stands for remove directory, and pop is gone. But will it work on Linux Basics, which has 5 files? It won't, because Linux Basics folder is not empty. So for that we use rm-rf, and what rm stands for is remove, and r-rf. So the r there stands for recursively and f stands for forcefully. So what this will do and remove all the files present in there recursively one by one. So I do that, and there is no Linux Basics present anymore. So now what I'm going to tell is so there's another interesting command called echo. Echo is like the print command in your Python shell, just that echo outputs everything in your terminal only. Echo hello everyone, it gives in the terminal. Now what if you want to create a file with some content on it, which but you don't want to open the file and you want to create it directly from the terminal? Like we use vim test.txt, open a file, write one sentence, then close it. What if I don't want to, just for one sentence opening a file is not it's it's like not you have alternatives ways. So that's where I'm going to show you, that's what I'm going to show you. So let's say echo new command echo. What this will do is output this in the terminal. So what I'm going to do, I'm creating a file echo.txt, and see there's a new file called echo.txt. So if I do echo.txt, it contains this new command echo. So what this basically did is echo this first part gave an output of new command echo, and what this greater than symbol told basically was take this output and put it in this file echo.txt. So the and that's how echo.txt got created, and simultaneously this content new command echo was written in this file. But let's say I want to write something else. Text editors. When I do echo.txt, you can see that it was replaced. So so if I want to add line by line, you use double greater than symbols. Text editors for Linux, and you see it's coming one by one. This is how you create new files. It's very useful because how useful it is, I'll show you once after this concept called pipes, how this is used. So what pipes does, so let's say I have a command like this, command or program. I have a program one. Pipe is the symbol which is above your enter button. So let's say program one and program two. Program one will have one input and one output, and program two will have one input and one output. So what basically pipe does is when program one executes and it provides an output, the pipe will take that output and provide it to program two as an input. So how is that? So let's see. Let's say ls. These are the directories over here. Now I do ls pipe grep h. Now what is this grep command used for? Grep is basically similar to what you can think of like in regex you use for searching and matching. When you say grep h, what it will do, it will what is the output of this echo.txt. So what this did was ls gave the ls has an output of echo.txt and text test.txt, which it passed to greph. What greph does is, in greph searches for letter H in the input. So what you can say is ls give echo dot txt and what was the test.txt. And what greph does is searches for all patterns of searches for H. So what pipe did was ls had ls gave out ls gave an output of this echo.txt and test.txt. What pipe did was it took this output and gave it as input to greph. So what basically happened was this greph then tried to find the searched for H, which in the input, which parameters uh, had H in it, and that was only present in echo.txt. So it returned echo.txt. Grep is a very useful command for for searching and filtering of your elements. Let's say over here I use grep and I do W. There are two folders which has W on it: RTL, Wi-Fi, new, and webinar. So this is the use of grep, which helps in searching and filtering, and pipe basically helps connect two different commands together. Now let's see cat Linux cat echo.txt text editors for Linux. What I'll do, cat echo.txt grep Linux text editors for Linux. It provides me this output. Now what if you have, let's say you have such a case that it's a long file, more than 100 lines long, and you have to extract all the sentences with Linux in it and store it in a new file. That's where these commands will come in help for you. So first I do cat echo.txt dep Linux, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to store that output in a file which is I'll say output.txt. So output.txt is present, and it only has the sentence which is similar, which has Linux on it. So what this did, cat echo.txt provided this output, which grep Linux took as input. Grep Linux then gave the output text editors for Linux, because Linux was only matching in this line, and this line was inserted into output.txt. So this is how you use the grep and pipes. Now I'm using Ubuntu over here. So the package manager for Ubuntu is apt-get. Must have heard of it. So in apt-get, if you type, you will look at the various mostly used command: update, upgrade, install. If you have freshly installed Linux, then the first command you would like to type is apt-get update. So what update does, it basically the repeat lyrics only, apt-get remove. That's when you use remove. It's asking if I want to continue, and yes. So if I want to check now if Nginx is installed or not, I'll once again check dpkg. See, Nginx is not installed and no information is available because I have removed it. Now, if you want to check whether a particular package is present in an app yet not, like for example, I'll check for tmux. So apt ca apt cache search tmux. So these are all the packages which are present in my app repository, and this is the one I was searching for, tmux. Now what apt-get does basically is it pulls all the packages from some online servers or repositories. If you want to look at those repositories, you can go to this file, cat etc apt sources.list, and it lists out all the repositories that apt-get is um, pulling its packages from. For example, Microsoft.com, repos, VS Code stable, Kubernetes.io. And if you want to add a repository, like many times what will happen is some of the packages will not be present in the app repository and you'll have to manually add them. So that's when you use add app and then your repository name. So right now I'm not giving anything. So this is regarding apt-get. Now, what if you want? Uh, so, but right now, after doing all, I'm interested in seeing what's happening in my network. So, to do that, you use a command called netstat minus tunlp, and what this lists out is all the uh, processes that are going on, in which port it's running on, which protocol it's using, TCP or UDP. So what does the parameters TUNLP stand for? So T stands for TCP, U stands for UDP, uh, P stands for program, L stands for listening, and N stands for numeric. But here you can see some of these are state listening, the local address is given, but I'm not getting the program name or PID. So we use when you use sudo, that's when you get this different output with the program name and PID. This was when I did not use sudo, and this was when you use sudo. So what sudo does is basically it gives you the power of root, that whichever command is run after writing sudo, it runs with the power of root. So the first time when I ran this command, it I you can say that it was run by user Chuck, which is the current user. When I use sudo in front of it, it was run with the power of root, which is the highest, or you can say the god user in your operating system. And you have a and here you can see there are different outputs like program name and PID. What this stands for, every program is assigned a unique identity number, which is called as PID. So for example, you can see MongoDB. I have MongoDB running on my system. It's running on PID 1746. It's listening, and here I have the port with me 27017. Then there's SSHD, which is SSH, PID 1789. It's running on port 22. So let's say you want to search for a particular port, uh, if it's running on if which process is running on which particular port. Want to know where, sorry, I had used sudo. So what I did was I used netstand minus tnlp to list out all the process and ports, and from that I searched for SSHD. So you can see that SSHD has a PID of 1789 and it's running on port 22. And there's one more command called ps-aux. And see this gigantic output. It basically lists all the processes and programs running in your system right now, and it has the timing, start time, the PID, everything is present in this. What you can do many times, what will happen is that you need to kill some processes, or kill some processes because your system hangs up or is not responding. That's when you use these commands. For example, I'll show. Here I have a Node.js application. What I'll do is, what is happening is it's the application is running on port 3000. So I'll go to my web browser and I'll type localhost 3000. So this is my application. I want to kill it. So what I'll do first, I'll check for my the PID of the process which is running on port 3000. And I get this output. So the PID is 7864. So to kill a process, you use kill -9 PID, and go back and refresh. It's not there anymore. So I've successfully killed the process. See, killed. It's showing killed over here. I do. There's no process present in port 3000. So these are all happening behind your network. Now, what if you want to find the IP address of your system? So use ifconfig, and right now I have a lot of different services. So the most important one is the one over here. My one, it's named ENP0. This one, most probably in most systems, it's ENP0S3. So this is my IP address. Use it. This is your. This is the IP address is basically used to uniquely identify a system among a set of systems. So ifconfig helps you find the IP address of your system. Another command which is present is ipaddr. So Uh, Here you can see my IP. Yeah, you can see my IP address present over here. IP ADDR and IFconfig and IP ADDR. These are used to find your IP address and network addresses of your system. Now, how this helps is in why this IP is so important is because in industries and companies, you don't have to just manage a single system. There are multiple servers running around with which you have to manage, and if there's a and you don't go and log into different systems differently. What you do is sitting from one system, you log into another. So that's called remote access, and for that you use SSH. So what SSH allows me to do is that if there's a server 1 over here and there's a server 2 over here, SSH will me to connect server 1 to server 2. That is, I can open up the terminal of server 2 in the terminal of server 1. So what I'm saying is, uh, what I'll do SSH, I'm going to enter remote system. So you can see that this is a remote system I'm inside, and through SSH I have entered it remotely. What you need for this is an IP address and a password or an authentication system to enter. And once you enter, you can start working on it. You can see that I have different directories over here, different packages over here. And if you want, and one more interesting thing, for example, this one, if I try to do apt get install Nginx, it won't get, because right now what I've SSH'd or accessed remotely is a CentOS based system, which I was talking about, which uses different kind of package manager yum. Here you install using yum. So SSH allows you to do all that. It allows you to enter remote systems and then work upon them. I'll shut it down. Now I'm back to my own system. And where this is useful is if you have worked with cloud computing and and you know about instances and Amazon instances or DigitalOcean instances, you don't enter a graphical user face or anything. You enter the terminal through SSH, and they provide you authentication methods for that. So SSH is a really cool command. So right now, let's check out one really awesome thing that's called permissions. I showed you that ls-a, it lists out all the directories, lists out all the files in your present directory. Now, to make a hidden file, I make apo. Now, there's one more command called ls-l. What this does is, if you can notice properly, echo.txt, output.txt, test.txt. Inside of that uh, is written the timestamps when they were created, date they were created. Now, what's interesting is this part. What this means is the owner or the person who created this file is Chuck. Then there is a group. What group means is you have a set of users which which belongs to particular groups. Let's say I have a group called where there are users Ram, Sam, and then there are group called database, and there are users um, Bharat, and then so what groups does, it basically classes a set of users together and you can give them permissions. So what permissions means is, sit on over here. There are, when you make a file or when you want to access file, there are three permissions you have: R, read, W, write, X, execute. A permission of R means you can read the file. A permission of W means you can write in the file, modify it, and X means you can execute the file. If suppose it's a Python script or a bash script, you have powers to execute it. Now if I look at my current output, there are uh, it's written like RW. What these first three means is the power of the owner, the person who made the file. He currently echo.txt owner has power RW, means he can read and write in it. And who is the owner? Owner is the one who is noted down first. So right now the owner is Chuck. Then the next three is for the group. The the person who made the file, the group he is present in, the other members of the group, what powers they have. Like for example, suppose Ram made a file hello hello.txt. Ram is the owner and he has a power of read and write. The group will be writers because Ram belongs to that group. So he'll be of the group writers. They have a power of read. So if Sam wants to access this file hello.txt, he can only read it. He cannot modify it. And then the last one is last three stands for others. That is the persons who are not present in the group and who is not the owner. So like for example, Bharat and Roshan, they they can only they can only read the file. These are basic file permissions. Now what if you want to modify it? See my contacts.csv, the owner can read, write and execute. Groups can also read, write and execute, and others cannot do a thing. The packages is a directory. See, there's a small d present here, which stands for directory. Here the packages owner has the power to read, write, execute. The group has the power to only read and execute, and the others only have power to read and execute. Now, if you want to change the permissions of your file or directory, you use a command called chmod, change mode. So I'll show that. Let's say there's this uh, contacts.csv. Now, every time typing in ls-l and checking the file permissions, it's kind of tiresome. So there's another command called get fscl. Now if I type get fscl contact.csv, you can see a lot more information here. What it says here is the owner is Chuck, group is Chuck, user permissions are read, write and execute, and group permissions are read, write, execute, and others have only permissions to read. Now if I want to change permissions of this contacts.csv, if I want to change, suppose the group permissions, I want to only keep it as read and write. Now let's see get FSCL. One minute. What I did was this. From the group permissions, I removed execute. So if I do get FSCL now, you can see the group has only permissions read and write. If I do chmod group r minus w, group has no permissions. Similarly, if I want to change for the owner, the owner has only user has only permissions reading. But if you go to change like this every time typing like this, so G stands for group, U stands for owner, and O stands for others. But every time if you go typing like this, it's kind of tiresome. So what we use is numbers basically. So how do we use that? So for read, we have provided number 4. For write, we have provided number 2. And for execute, we have provided a number 1. Now, if I want the owner to just be able to read, if you want owner to just be able to read, you'll use number 4. If you want just to write, number 2. If you want just to execute, 1. If you want both read and write, you add them up, which you get 6. Now, how is this more useful? Because in here, using one command, you can define all the permissions for all the users. So let's say what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give this owner read, write, and execute, group only read and write, and others only read. So to do that, sudo chmod 7, because it's for read, write, execute. So 4 plus 2 plus 1, then read and write, which is 4 plus 2 for group. Next one represents group, and then only read to others. See, it's updated. Now, if you want to change the owner of the file, you can say ch own. I have another user called DevOps. So if I do this, you can see I've changed the owner of my contacts.csv file. If you want to change the group, you can change the group. Now, these were on file permissions. Though now now if you want to create a new user, you use user add, and I'll say create a new user called Dipto. I don't have permission, so I'll use sudo. Now remember I told you that all the new users are created on the home. So 1 second. Right now I can't so user add Dipto. Now I'll set a password for Dipto. So you do that using passwd file. So I have to use sudo. I'll set a password. Now where can you see all the created users of your system? So there's a file called etc passwd. What this contains is all the different users in your system. So here you can see Dipto, which I created just now. Then there's DevOps, which I have, and here's Chuck. The rest of them that you see are either services or programs that kind of run like processes. Like for example, you can see MongoDB here, Jenkins here. The real uh, users are Dipto, DevOps, and Chuck. Now, what this is the user ID of this user. Like for example, this ID. So the user ID of my account Chuck is 1000, group ID is 1000, and these are also the groups present over here, groups that Chuck is present in. So if I do cat password, it provides me what are the user ID and group ID and what type of user I am. Okay, what is my directories? So home, Dipto, DevOps is present in home slash DevOps. Now, if you want to check, now all the passwords of all the users are stored in a different file called etc passwd. And as you can see, etc shadow, sorry. As you can see, Chuck, Dipto, and DevOps. What you see over here is the password. It's basically hashed. Whatever password we provide is hashed and stored in this file, where every time we log in, we try to match this password, and if the hash matches, we are authorized to log in. So the last thing that I want to show you is df-h. What this shows is basically all the device systems and disk space in your system. So for example, my SDA 7, it's available 6.6 GB and I've used 21 GB. Its total size 29 GB. My SDA 9, which is of 55 GB, where I've used 35 GB. Basically, if you want to see all the disk, uh, which partition is using how much disk space, you can use this. And if you want to check for a single folder how much size it is, you can use du slash hyphen sh to run through sudo 20 GB. So my desktop folder is of 20 GB. So the command is du-sh. And if you want to see all the directories in your folder, you can use this command, tree dot. Basically, it shows you what are the files and directories in each folder. So I hope so guys, that was all for today. So I hope you are able to grasp some of the basics of Linux, at least how to make files, make directories, change permissions, check processes, and how to install packages. So so that will be all for today's Linux basics. uh, if you have any more doubt, you can contact us. Thank you.